So good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and tonight I have Mike. He's he's the guitar player in the Seattle death metal band Noroth, which is a trio, and they just put out an album last Friday, and we're here to talk about it. So, Mike, how are you tonight?
Hey, just living the dream.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm trying not to look at the artwork. That's me. That's in the back from you. It's kind of distracting, but I'll concentrate. So I listened to the new album, and you guys are a band that formed, I think, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, like you put out your first album right in 2020 in the pandemic, and then you put out a second one, and now this is the third album. So how much do you think that the sound has evolved a little bit from your first two records to this one?
I mean, I guess the first album was just kind of some shit that I had been working on for years, so it'd kind of been like sitting, just like waiting to use. The second album was a lot more like experimental because our drummer had a lot to, or excuse me, our old drummer had a lot to do with the writing. So he influenced that a lot. And then he left the band a couple years ago, and our new drummer has a lot more, I guess, similar taste and focus as far as like what I want to do. And so at the third album, it kind of went back to some of the stuff that's more similar to the first album, and basically allowed me to do whatever I wanted, as opposed to like having to compromise and try to figure out something that like we were both happy with. It was just I kind of had free reign to essentially do whatever I wanted.
Okay, yeah, because you have a different drummer on this one. So I saw the music video for the I think it's the lead single, and yeah, it's I like it because you put it in. There's like this may be offensive for some people. I'm talking about the adorned in flesh, which I think the music video explains itself what the song is all about, because you have a guy like ripping up his flesh with his very death metal. So talk to me a little bit about the song and the music video for that one.
Well, I guess as far as the song itself, it's one of the shortest, if not maybe the shortest song on the album. And I wrote it just because I
Only
wanted
2 minutes,
it
yeah.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted it to be a quick song with not a whole lot going on, very focused. But as far as the video, I guess I'm a horror movie nerd, and so I'm a big fan of like practical effects. And basically, a lot of the video is a mix of one of our shows where we open for Incantation, and it's kind of chopped up with a lot of my favorite scenes, that I kind of tried to find that I guess refer to the song theme, and that kind of like the images kind of relate to the song, I guess, kind of, so it made sense, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just chose a bunch of my favorite scenes, and we had made some other promo videos that also have similar things, but it's a little bit more difficult because I had to find some stuff that was either longer or stuff that I hadn't used before. But I tried to choose stuff that I feel like, again, either like really fit or just like I wanted people to see because they were for movies that maybe most people didn't see, even if they're a fan of horror. Like,
yeah, like I have a few people that are subscribed to my channel that are like one that's very into horror. So like tell me a little bit about the horror films that you love that inspired this, that maybe are not well known. Maybe I'll check them out.
Well, I guess one of the biggest ones is the Necronomicon, and it's like a 3-part anthology movie. So, you know, it's like broken up kind of similar to you know, some of the stuff from the 80s where like, you know, you would see with like either, you know, the anthology style, I guess that was popular more back then. And I think this came out in like the early 90s, but it's the special effects on some of it is from the same guy who did From Beyond or the Reanimator. And it's all practical effects, which is like pretty much what I'm only into. I kind of hate it when CGI is brought into a lot of stuff, which is like pretty common these days.
Oh yeah, the modern horror is very different from, well, at least what I remember growing up. Like, and I think the classic effects are even, to me, they're more disturbing because the CGI, it looks so fake.
Yeah. Well, it's also more of like an art form. You know, I have friends in the industry that you know, basically, you know, you have to create these effects to make them look real, and it's just kind of, I don't know. There's not a whole lot of like modern movies that still like push that as much. Like CGI is so like heavily like implemented, and so it's nice to see. I mean, there are still some newer movies that still obviously use it. It's just not as common, especially with like bigger budgets. Um, so yeah, I guess that's why I like to push is like older movies. Though some of the movies are pretty big. Like there's like a short, really small clip from The Fly 2, like the very end of The Fly 2,
Mm.
as like one of my favorite face melting scenes. Um,
My
and
my
then,
favorite face melting scene is from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I mean, sure, that's a classic.
A
That
good
was
one.
probably the first one I saw as a
Yeah.
kid. Um, but yeah, I think movies like that, kind of like, and Evil Dead were like what honestly shot me down the road of like, oh, I need to like watch as much of this as I possibly can. And then basically ever since I was like 12 or 13 or whenever that was, I was just like addicted to like renting or, you know, going to the video store. Is like, you're probably a little older than me or around my age, where, you know, you used to go to the video store and you could
I
like
don't know. I
pick out
remember the
stuff
video
based.
store.
Yeah, you look at the cover and be like, okay, this looks like a good one. Let's see how disgusting this is going to be.
Oh,
So, I mean, I guess it was the same thing with album covers. You know, I would choose an album based on the cover. And even today, like if an album has a bad cover or like a stupid cover, or it's just something that
stupid
I
cover.
don't, it's something that doesn't appeal to me, I will either not check it out or I'll put off checking it out, because to me, like art is almost as important as like the music itself, because it's part of the whole like experience. And so I really hate it, even when bands like, you know, when you get an album, like whether it's a CD or vinyl or even a cassette, like when you open up in the insert and there's no art on the insert, you know, or it's just like cheap like Photoshop, which I hate. I mean, that's, I guess some people argue that's a form of art. I guess it is, but I like hand drawn, painted um, stuff that like just either is inspired or just comes from the mind. And so that's one of my favorite things about getting physical media is, you know, you have that piece of it too.
Yeah, yeah, no, and plus you're a death metal band from Seattle. That you know, Seattle is not known that much from death metal. Even though I've interviewed newer bands and there's thrash, you know, like when I thought of Seattle, I thought of like the music that I listened to growing up. But yeah, it's a very varied scene. How's the death metal scene in Seattle?
It's I would say it's probably the best in the States. Um, I mean, I'm biased because of my personal taste. Like
Mhm.
the scene in like the Northwest, which is like essentially everywhere from like, you know, Portland,
Yeah.
Seattle, Vancouver, BC, like the three big cities. They're all like, you know, 3 or so hours apart. Um, you know, we can have local shows that to other people would be like a fest, you know, just because we have so many sick bands. But yeah, it definitely hasn't been that way forever. You know, it's definitely in the last like 5 to 10 years, especially, that it's like picked up. And there's always been good bands. Like some of our like classic like 90s death metal bands like Drawn and Quartered are still around. Um, but back then, like there just weren't that many, and they weren't as maybe as good. And so maybe our scene like back, 20 plus years ago didn't get as much recognition because there weren't that many bands, at least of that quality coming out. Whereas now it's just like a higher level. And yeah.
Yeah, well, it's good that it's a city that has so many musical genres that flourish out of it. I'm guessing it's, so much rain. You guys have time to be indoors and play. So you talked about, artwork being important. So I want to show the artwork for the album. So here's the cover for Sacrificial Solace, the artwork. So tell me a little bit, this artwork, there's a lot of stuff going on in it, but you really gotta look at the details. So tell me a little bit about what you wanted for this artwork of this record.
Well, honestly, I'm kind of a fan of giving really loose directions, because I like the artists to kind of like, do their own thing or give their interpretation. So with Thomas, he had worked with us on a couple of like flyers for tours, and I think 1 or 2 pieces of like some merchandise we did. And I wanted him to do our new album because our last couple albums, like even though I love the art, I just wanted to like, wanted to change it up and do a different artist. So with this, we kind of just gave him, I mean, I don't even remember what I told him, to be honest, but
Did you
very,
tell him that you wanted stuff coming out of the nipples?
yes. I mean, I definitely like how he does a lot of like genitalia and just crazy like demon creatures. So I basically was like, go wild, with those 2 things. And so that's essentially what he did. But I think we had maybe something to do with blood in there, but I can't remember.
No, there's a lot of detail that you gotta, you see there's like angels, and the demon, the mask looks like something. I'm from Puerto Rico, and it looks like a vejigante mask, which is a mask that they use here for some festivals, but it kind of looks like a demon.
Yeah.
So yeah, I look at the mask and it kind of looks like that. But yeah, if you look at this artwork, you pretty know, yeah, this is a death metal. This is old school death metal, because that's most of the sound that I hear a lot of like very old school traditional death metal to the sound. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So and you being a fan of artwork and obviously horror, yeah, I have a question for you. What do you think of like I heard they're remaking The Exorcist again. I'm like, why are they doing this? Like, what do you think of? What are your takes on this remake?
I mean, that one specifically, like, I guess in general, I don't like remakes. Though usually I'll still watch them out of curiosity, and like every once in a while, you'll come across one that essentially either does it justice or is, tolerable. But most of the time, like remakes, especially stuff from the 80s, it's like, it's guaranteed to be bad, or at the very best, like, you know like, okay, I guess, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's I guess for me overall, like I'm not a huge fan of a lot of like modern horror because I don't like the technology and the editing and everything that's being used. Everything looks too clean, everything's too like digital, everything is too pretty, like
Yeah,
it's too like it shouldn't be that clean and produced, it kind of just ruins it for me. So um that's why like a lot of like modern horror just like gets ruined for me, because it looks too nice, and it without even like watching it, I just like generally know it's just not going to appeal to me. And that's um kind of across the board with like music too. Like I generally shy away from albums that are too produced. It just like I don't think, especially with death metal, like it shouldn't be that clean. It doesn't I don't know, it just doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. And I have the same thing. I love shark movies, and I still think Jaws is the best shark movie ever. And the other day on Netflix, I got like, oh, there's a new movie called Under Paris, and I saw some critics say this is the best shark movie after Jaws. I'm like, and I saw it, and it's just the same thing, like CGI sharks, and it's just stupid. They're in Paris. In the river,
Yeah.
and you're like that's a very filthy river. So yeah, it's totally like I like with Jaws, you know, they had the practical effects, like you couldn't see the shark all the time. It was all the build up, but you know it had a good story. And
Yeah.
it
Well, yeah, you have good screenwriting, you have good special like practical effects. Like, yeah, I mean the first Jaws, and I mean honestly all the Jaws, I like all of them. Um
even the
yeah, all
revenge,
those movies are killer. Huh?
even the last one where the shark followed them to the Bahamas.
Oh yeah, I mean what was that? Was that 3 or whatever?
You
Yeah.
know, that's just for the revenge. And
Oh, the revenge.
the
Okay.
shark follows them to the Bahamas, and you're like, why?
I mean, I don't know. I like the Piranha movies. Did you watch those?
The which one?
The Piranha movies?
Oh, I remember the first one. And
Okay.
I remember there was one where the piranha flew, right?
Yeah, I mean there's the first one, there's the second one, and then there's a more modern version.
Oh yeah, that was terrible.
Oh, I loved it. Piranha 3D.
Oh, it
Yeah.
was well, it was fun.
Yes, yeah.
Especially you know, there's a part where the you see the penis in 3D and the piranha eats it. It's kind of funny.
So yeah, so to me like, but like there is still like a lot of like, I mean there's obviously a lot of ridiculous special effects, but there's still a lot of like practical effects in
Mhm.
that movie.
Yeah.
And uh I don't know, to me a movie like that, like sure it's not very intelligent, but
Yeah, no, they
it's
probably spent
but
like
it
2 days with the script.
but it's entertaining. Like
Yeah.
you're not going to get bored watching it. At least I'm not. And so uh to me, like I guess I do have like an appreciation for just like bad movies that are just entertaining. And so I don't know. I guess it just comes down to taste, right? But
Yeah.
um yeah, I don't know. I was a fan.
Yeah. So so for this record, you know, like when you guys are, you know, uh working on it, like did you have you write most of the lyrics for the record, correct?
No, that's our vocalist.
Okay.
Um he like will kind of show them to us after, like I'll write the song like, and me and the drummer kind of like piece it together and compose it. Because Jeremy, like he doesn't write any of the riffs, but he writes all the drum parts, and like he kind of like will hash things out with me like compositionally.
Mhm.
And then Biagio will go back and kind of like lay out his like phrasing, lay out his lyrics, but then he'll like kind of show and be like, hey, what do you think of this? And sometimes I'll give him feedback and be like, hey, like you should have, you know, the phrasing like this in this one section because this is how I wrote it and I envisioned this.
Mhm.
But uh that doesn't happen so much anymore. Usually he's like pretty good at just kind of like coming up with good phrasing that like, I don't know, I think fits, and like I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh but like lyrically a lot of it is how based on like either stuff with like religion or just the human race and how fucking stupid like just like humanity in general is and how fucked up a lot of things are. And so like our songs are like metaphors that are basically inspired by just like various like human,
Stupidity.
violence or stupidity. Yeah. And so, but a lot of it is religious based because
No, of course.
we're like pretty anti-religious as far as like, well, me and our singer bass player
I
are.
couldn't tell, man. I'm joking.
But it's like, I don't know. I'm like if religious is like, I don't know. It's hard. As I met someone and they said that they were religious, it's hard for me to take anything seriously or like respect them, or it's just, I don't know. To me, it's like it's such an insane thing,
You're
especially
not
growing up in
going on that website for find God's match for you.
Yeah. Well,
Did you ever see that? There was a website for religious people to hook up, and I always thought the slogan was like "Find God's match for you," but I had a better slogan. I should have sent it to the company. It would have said, "God wants you to fuck."
You said God wants you to kill yourself. That would have been better.
No, yeah, that's
Because if they're fucking, that means they're creating more children, and we have two. There's enough kids.
Yes, I have a few.
Um,
So yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I really like Symphony of Decay. How did you the Sound of the Flies? How did you get that?
Oh, the flies. Oh, it was just like a fly sample that was like mixed with um like dripping blood, and so it's kind of like to correlate like someone basically waking up in a pile of bodies and their flesh is rotting and they're covered in flies.
Typical Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More
So
like typical Monday.
well, it depends where you are. I'm in sunny Puerto Rico. It's nice here, but there's some death everywhere. So so the album, it's short, it's to the point, it's basically it's 22 minutes, 8 tracks. So do you have like a favorite song from the record?
um I don't know, it's kind of hard. I mean, I guess that I have to pick one, it would be Black Serpent, just because uh I don't know, it had some of my favorite riffs that I wrote. But generally the way I phrase albums now is I put my favorite songs on the A side, and then my second favorite songs on the B side. So it's like the first 4 songs on the album are my favorite songs, and so I kind of just picked that one because I guess everyone else kind of agreed it was like one of our strongest songs, I guess, or what we wanted people to hear first anyways. But yeah, so I
But you
guess I would
also
have to
want
say Black Serpent.
like a strong album closer, and here you finish with Devoid of Grace, which obviously
Yeah.
you can tell it's super anti-religious for that. And to me, religion is something that it's hard, to me, people have them believe what they believe, but sometimes who knows the truth? I don't know. I preach the I don't know.
Sure. I mean, I have a lot of friends like that, but I guess I was raised in a hyper religious
Well, I went to
household,
Catholic school, man.
and so like I don't know. I guess the level of like bullshit was too high for me to like deal with. It was just like
Yeah.
everyone that I met, it was just kind of like fuck these people, and so it just basically over my life, it just like built up this like gag reflex for anytime I meet someone that like I find out that believes that way. It's like instead of just being like, oh, whatever, that's what they believe. It's like initially like I don't want to be around this person. I don't want to talk to this person. Like I don't know. It's a lot of like trauma and like fucked up shit I grew up around that I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
It's hard for me to let it slide.
yeah, there's always Scientology. that one's pretty interesting as well. But yeah, so so what's, the album is already out. Are you guys, do you have some shows booked? What's next for the band?
Yeah, we have a handful of tours. We're not like a huge touring band, but like to tour at least like a decent amount. So we're doing a Northwest tour with Frenolith from Denmark here in a few weeks. That's like our album release tour. And then next month we're doing California with his band Vile Rights, who is also on our record label Carbonized.
Okay.
And then in the fall, we're going to Japan and touring with our friends in Grave Infestation, who's from Vancouver, BC, which is just 3 hours north of us. But we're playing the same fest, Asakusa Death Fest, with
Wow.
Undagong and Miasmatic Necrosis and a bunch of other friends of ours. So yeah,
I would be stoked to go to Japan.
Yeah, I'm as well. I'm looking forward to it.
Where in Japan is that gonna be?
Well, the fest is in Tokyo, but we'll be playing 4 other shows in various other cities like Nagoya and Yokohama and a few others.
Yeah, I want to go to Kyoto. It looks super pretty and awesome.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go there before our tour.
Yeah, no, it looks. Yeah, I haven't been, but it does look like an amazing place to to visit. So
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things.
yeah, and so yeah, I would recommend this album. For people who like old school death metal. It's got that vibe. It's 22 minutes. It goes straight to the point and to the jugular. So yeah, I would say where can they find the copies? Do you have vinyl or like more CDs and cassettes?
All three, every format. So you should just go to Carbonized website or Carbonized Bandcamp. They have everything, cassette, CDs, vinyl, and they also have a European store. So if you're on the other side of the world, you can order through Europe because it'll be cheaper shipping.
Yeah,
so if you're in this, it's he has it set up where it's just to make it easier on people because shipping is really expensive if you're
oh yeah,
living in Europe and trying to order from the States or vice versa. So yeah, it's nice that he has separate stores on different sides of the world.
So are you already, like, when you guys do these tours, are you already thinking of a follow-up for next year, or are you gonna take your time?
Yeah, I don't want to write another full length for a while because this is our third one. And
yeah,
that being said, we have a split that we're going to be releasing sometime in the end of this year.
With another band? Who's the other band?
Yeah,
gonna be there?
Grave Infestation.
Oh, okay.
The band that we're touring Japan with. So we're going to be doing a split with them. That'll come out sometime at the end of this year.
Yeah, those are always interesting because you get like the two flavors of the bands and sometimes collaborations on a song, so which is pretty great. So Mike, I want to thank you for taking some time of your evening to chat with me about the band and other horror and religion and all of the above. It's been fun. So anything you like to say to the fans before we go?
Thanks for the support. And again, if you can buy physical media, go to the label or come to a show.
Awesome. So until next time, people, this is Hector, the Shield on a Couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.